right, welcome to Shift, a podcast where we share stories of people overcoming their own internal BS to really come out of their comfort zones and grow in their personal and professional lives. My aim here is to help people recognize that there's a lot of undiscovered parts of ourselves that await for us if we're just willing to get out of the comfort zone and get our own way. My name is Elena Agaragimova. I'm your host, and I'm really excited to have John Sanei with me today. John is a futurist, strategist, and an author and an entrepreneur, and many other things that I completely admire about you, John. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here with you again and connecting with you. It's been a while since we last connected. So hello.
Yes. And the beautiful part is that we connected over your book. So one of the things that connected us was some of the content that you produce as your books. So I'm really excited for that because I enjoy reading and I enjoy it when I actually get to meet the authors. So it's been a special kind of relationship.
Well, awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So thank you.
So there's many valuable points that people can definitely take away from you and just your experience as an entrepreneur, as a future strategist. But I've always found something that's interesting about you and unique in a way is that ability to adapt in just about any situation that you're in. And I know this is something that people can definitely relate to, particularly after a lot of changes that we've gone through in the last year and a half. So, and I know you have this concept of kind of connecting the invisible dots to make things work, right? To look back and to trust the journey and to adapt and change and adjust as needed. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because and what I'm referring to specifically is your entrepreneurship journey. You've gone through ups and downs. You've failed in your businesses. You've succeeded. You've kind of gone through a roller coaster of experiences. And even in with everything when it went virtual in 2020 as well, you've really managed to adopt quite significantly. Talk to us a little bit about the invisible dots that you discuss.
So it's a great question to kick off with. I wrote a whole book about it called Foresight. And in it, what I do is I try and get people to understand that every single one of us have an ability to connect certain invisible dots. And they are so unique to us. And my invisible dots has somehow ended up being human psychology and future studies. That's just my highest excitement. And in it, I explain that interior designers have their skill sets, hairdressers have their skill sets, footballers have their skill sets. And so everybody has it. So the idea about adaptability is always and must always be preempted with accessing your genius, your excitement, your curiosity, because that's what gives you your adaptability quotient. You see, if you are logical in your thinking and have only studied course A, B, and C, and that's all you have inside the software of your head, it's very difficult to be adaptable because you keep going back to safety of what you know. The great thing about being curious, it gives you an opportunity to keep diving deeper and more parallelly and vertically and in all sorts of ways, chasing that curiosity. And what happens when you chase that curiosity, you become naturally adaptable. And it's because curiosity gives you energy, dopamine, creativity. This ends up with the only option of being optimistic about the journey that you're taking because curiosity makes you happy. It actually feeds you into a space of joy. Now, here's the thing, is that most of us are in the world of competition. And the reason we are is because we have been trained similarly to other people around us. So what's the best thing to do is compete with people with similar skill sets. When you do follow your curiosity and you dive deep into that, you realize that you're so unique that there's no need to compete with anybody else. There's only collaboration opportunities because you then start finding other people who have tapped into their genius and their excitement. And in this process, you don't only become adaptable, you become naturally collaborative. And this is really where the world needs to go. It's this idea of the sharing economy, the shared human brain, and our ability to uplift each other through the process of accessing our genius, sharing it with the rest of the world, and collaborating to uplift everybody.
Mm. And this idea of genius, I have to be very, very honest. So I don't know if you remember this, but a while back, I was posting something on social media and I said, you know what, people are just not motivated, and I was really frustrated at a point. I said, people are not motivated. And, if you're not kind of, excited to get up about your day, you really, where's your motivation? And is it that people are just lazy? And I remember you've commented and you said, Elena, no, they haven't tapped their genius. And that was such a change of mindset for me. And I said, he's absolutely right. I was like, they just haven't tapped into their genius, and that every single person has that potential, but they just haven't tapped. So, and it seems like the formula for it is that curiosity. So I think about it often. I really do. And I refer to this conversation quite a bit in some of the conversations that I have, but
there's one other thing that makes the formula work. And it's wisdom. And wisdom is best described by Alan Watts. He says, the knowledgeable man has to learn something new every day, but the wise man has to unlearn something new every day. And it's about letting go of old successes and old pains to continuously recreate from the point of zero, and every day zero, and every day zero. And so if you're able to let go of old patterning, old trauma, old successes, then you're always starting on a clean slate, utilizing curiosity as your rudder and your motivating factor. That combination allows you to be unhooked from the past and focused only on the future through a process of curiosity.
So, and it's very true. So what you're saying is that kind of that process of unlearning, and I feel like that's where people struggle with the most, because that is uncomfortable, because that means we have to strip away everything that we are, essentially everything that we believe that we are, and to almost face, to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, well, to own up to our own BS and say, well, I'm here because of the choices and the decisions and the my own behavior, etc. And that's difficult to do. And I know in your experience as well, earlier in your career and with your entrepreneurship journey, that's something that you overcame. So what works for somebody who's sitting and say, yes, I know in theory that sounds great, but is it about a time? Is it the timing of your life? Is it certain experiences, or is it that there's actually step by step that you can take to break out of that in a more gentle way, so to say?
I don't think there's a gentle way, firstly. I think we have to crack and shatter our perspective at times. This is called growing up, and it's called developing wisdom. I think let's just become very clear. The very first thing we have to do is believe that we cannot see what our issues are. We can't. It's almost like it's very hard to read the label of the bottle from inside the bottle, right? So what you have to do is you have to first become aware that you are suffering from some assumptions and biases. Once you become clear on that, then you start seeking help to try and unpack your blind spots, because we've all got them, right? I remember buying my mom coaching sessions for one of her birthdays, and she was perplexed with me. She said, why are you buying me coaching sessions? Nothing's wrong. And that's my mom. I love her, but she's 70 years old and I don't think anything's wrong. Everything's hunky-dory. But the truth is your perspective is molded by your past, by your stories, by your memories, and even by your lineage and ancestral lessons unlearned by your father's mother. And so first, awareness that we are following maybe an assumption and biases that's not helping us evolve. That's the first thing. The second thing is when we start unpacking this more and more and more, the real key is to be more focused on where you're going than where you've been. Stepping into your potential rather than staying in your conditioning. And this is a big thing because I'm training for the Ironman now, and I can have conversations inside my head that say, I can't do that, or the Ironman in me is able to do that. I'm stepping into my potential of the potential of me becoming an Ironman, not the guy who could never ride past 40 kilometers that's now doing 80 kilometers or 100 kilometers. And so breaking those barriers of living in potential rather than conditioning then become the second step. And then the third step is that small rituals and internal dialogue points become habits and conversations we have with ourselves. And that becomes the third step. And that is a never-ending process, And so really it's, I have issues. I know they're fueled by memories and stories and trauma that I carry. I need to heal those. Seek help. Focus on where I'm going rather than where I've been. Focus on the internal conversation that you're having with yourself based on your rituals, habits, and behavior. and you're on your way. I mean, there is no silver bullet. It's a process. There'll most probably be lots of crying and shouting and screaming and trauma coming up. But that's the point, right? And that's what sets us free eventually in the long run.
Yeah. If you're crying and going through uncomfort, you're doing it right, basically.
Yeah. If you got snot coming out your nose, and you're on mark. That's a very good place to be.
And I agree with you in terms of kind of creating that process, the routines and habits, and I know you also speak a bit about the neuroscience aspect and why is it that makes that process easier, right? Because I think that one of the, at least what I've seen, the themes of people when they're trying to make a change, it's either they're afraid of the change, right? Or they don't feel like they have the confidence. So by creating almost these routines and small habits and taking the step-by-step, what you've done just now, it kind of minimizes the risk of failure, essentially, right? Because it's just a process that you follow. And at the same time, it removes the fear because it's such, it's a process. It's a process and there's a step-by-step to it. And that's what makes it easier to overcome this change versus kind of like going full on with a big change in your life.
Look, I think that becomes key is the mapping out the journey and then expecting those things to happen. I often say, look, where we are right now as humanity is a transition between two very clear seasons. And what do you do when you're changing from summer to winter? You can't stop winter coming. You just prepare better. And so because you understand what winter is going to give you, we don't have to now store food anymore because it comes anyway. But in the old days, you'd have to store food, get the clothes that were going to be warm and prepare for it. And so when you build out a system and a habit forming process, you then start preparing mentally for the difficult periods and expect them to a certain extent and know that they'll end again. So for me, it's like a map to developing sort of emotional fitness, I think is the best way to describe it.
Another thing I know you talk quite a bit, and it's something I've learned from you, is the idea of becoming. So focusing on who do you want to become. Yes, so not just kind of what do you want to do, but who is this person you need to become to be able to achieve what is it that you've set for yourself. So can you talk a little bit about why it's impactful for us to look at it from that perspective?
Well, I think that strategy has been done the wrong way this whole time. Strategy has always been done from point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And the reason I like doing strategy that way is that you start with the end in mind. And in this conversation, we're starting with who we want to be. And so you start with who you want to be, and then you work backwards and sequence your rituals and habits so that they're in line with the end result. It's as similar as going to holiday, right? So next time you get to the airport, imagine you didn't know where you were going on holiday. Like, how would you even get there? But with a holiday, we plan with the end in mind. And so we know exactly all the details, down to the last iota of visa and passport and bikini and shaving our parts of our body that need to not be on that beach. And so those levels of details are all there. But when it comes to who we want to be, we often don't have clarity on that. Now, the biggest trick or the biggest gift of this is discipline versus motivation. Is that when we don't have a to-do list, when we do a to-do list, we need motivation. When we have a to-be list, we have discipline. And so I know, again, just from my Ironman training, I know that 4 or 5 days a week, it is full on training every day. That decision has been made. And so now it's a process of just following the rituals and habits made based on that decision. Now, if I hadn't decided to enter the Ironman, where would you find the energy to want to wake up every day and cycle and swim and ride? Like, you just wouldn't even find it. You'd find 20 excuses not to do it. So this is really about to do versus to be, motivation versus discipline, and starting with the end in mind and working backwards.
No, I think that's gold. That's gold right there. I mean, if there was a magic formula, it's that. It's just setting your intention of who do you want to become. Essentially, I think that's completely on point. And that brings to my next point. And another thing, obviously, I learn a lot from you. But another thing that you've taught me is the intention, and that relates very much with daily habits and routines. So I remember you were talking one time about having just a few minutes of your day, writing down the intentions for your day, right? And kind of putting it even on a piece of paper and putting it in your pocket. And I've been doing that ever since, I don't know, whenever, a couple of years back that I've learned this from you. And I said, this is brilliant. And I do it. And it's now a habit and routine. It completely changed the way I approach that. I mean, I've implemented this into other things that I do in the morning. And I think that was so impactful. It's such a small yet big thing that can add a lot of value to somebody's day. So I'm curious if you want to talk a little bit about that. And also, what are some other habits and routines that you have in your day that help you with becoming that next version of John Sanei?
Firstly, if we just realize that reality is echoing back to us what we believe and desire and expect. So, expectations made up of belief and desire. And so when we have those two things together, then we start to bring into our lives the things that we're desiring and believing. Now, when we write down every day, we're almost chiseling away at this reality. We're chiseling away at the clarity of what we're expecting and desiring. So it's a constant reminder and GPS coordinates to what you're working for, why you're doing this, and what is it that you're actually looking for your brain to confirm to yourself, and that's just such a simple process, but many people take it for granted, and they don't realize that the world is echoing back to us what we desire and expect. Mm. What else I've started doing in recent times is not morning routines, but evening routines. And the reason for that is I don't have it on now, but I usually wear an Oura ring, which measures my sleep. And so what I've started doing is really becoming quite clear on my evening rituals of making sure that I'm getting 7 hours of quality sleep a night, every night. And that goes everywhere from what am I eating, how late, am I in bed by 9, am I meditating? I've got now a heavy blanket, a 7 kilo blanket that I bought 21 degrees on the aircon. So I go through all this process so that I can make sure. And look, it doesn't work every night. Some nights I've got other stuff on the go. But my rituals around sleep have become incredibly highlighted and something I focus on a lot now. So it's not so much a morning routine, because the morning routine, journal, meditate, exercise, these are like obvious nowadays, maybe like 10 years ago they were like, wow, what do you do? That's like now become
standard,
everybody's
right?
doing that. So now it's okay, what else, and so evening sleep rituals is big for me.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Yeah, I think that's something that we all can definitely use and have that structure around that. I think,
yes.
And I love it because it's not just about your sleep, because then so many other things tie in with your sleep. So it's almost like everything. Like it's
everything.
Yeah, when it comes.
I know when I've got on the ring, on the app, it tells me how much deep sleep I've gotten, and it's amazing because when I get good deep sleep, I'm in a brilliant mood. And when I don't get enough deep and REM sleep are very different. And so I usually get really good REM sleep, but not always deep sleep. And I can feel physically my brain totally different when I've had deep sleep.
So how many hours is deep sleep? Like what is a good couple?
Like an hour or two, not more than that. But sometimes if you fall below an hour, it's got a red line attached to it. And last night, in fact, on my app right now, I can show you it. I had a red line attached to it. I only did 19 minutes of deep sleep last night, which is terrible. But I did 2 hours of REM sleep. But it's all about the deep sleep.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard about the ring. I actually want to check it out.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty good. Listen, a quote came to mind. Actually, I just tweeted it. So it's from James Clear, related to what you just said. So he's the author of Atomic Habits, of course. And he said, a surprisingly effective way to get what you want is not to settle for less than what you want. It doesn't always work. You can't force the world to be in a certain way. And you may need healthy doses of patience and dodginess, but your life bends towards what you accept. And I love that quote. So he says, like goes down to that intention. It goes down to, actually, who do you want to become, and actually focusing on who you want to become and what do you want to become in order for you to actually achieve. So and life does bend towards where you focus on. I love that.
Of course it does. Yeah. I mean, our reality is what we focus on. Some people, I use this often. Don't you know some people that never make money no matter what's going on in the economy, and some people that make lots of money no matter what's going on in the economy? I mean, like, what does that even tell you? It's like some people just, it's a personal bubble of abundance that you carry with you or don't carry with you. You're looking for racism, you'll find it. You're looking for women abuse, you'll find it. You're looking for thieves as business partners, you'll find it. And all the opposites are true as well.
Yeah.
And so this becomes almost like a lesson in quantum science. Quantum science 101 is what you think about often, is how your brain wires often, is what your body and brain start looking to believe in. And that's kind of simple that we're starting to discover nowadays. So yeah, it's a big thing to practice constantly. You know, it's you need constant focus on it. There's no off button there.
Yeah, a good question for the audience would be, what are you focusing on right now? So that's, to bring their attention to that, and kind of what are the thoughts that are going through your mind. And I want to just ask you one more question, but before I do that, I wanted to just, if you can share with the audience where they can find you. You have brilliant books out there. I've read 2 of them. The third one I have yet to read, but it's on my list.
Also a 4th one now, Elena. Where have you been?
4th. I'm sorry. There's 3 ones. Oh,
no, I don't know. I write a book every year. Yeah.
I know you write a book every year. I think I've only read 3 of them, or 2 of them. Sorry, 2 out of. So then I'm 2 behind. But anyway, so
behind. That's all good.
It's on my to-do list. But so where can people find you? Because you produce a lot of content. I know you have a podcast, which is also brilliant. Talk to us a little bit about where they can find you and connect with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's 7.5 billion people in the world. There's only one John Sanei. I don't know where I lucked out with that. I mean, so a Christian name with an Iranian surname, not something often that you see. So my name, John Sanei, is like, you just Google that and everything pops up. All my books are available on Amazon. My podcast is called The Expansive Business Podcast with my co-host, Eric Kruger. I try and create as much content as I possibly can. And it's because I did ayahuasca many years ago. And ayahuasca said to me once in a ceremony, said, look, you're about to come into a lot of your power. And this was before my first book was going to come out. I had no idea that it was going to become a bestseller. And she said, look, there's a rule around accessing your genius. I said, okay, well, what is it? And she said, the access to genius that you get is not for you. It's for everybody around you. And if you stop sharing, you'll stop getting access. So you better share constantly. And so that was a great motivating and catalyst for me to go, okay, so let me just share freely, and do it openly and not be scared that no more is coming, which is what most of us do. Is we think that's it. Okay, that's it. I've got one book in me. I don't want to share this too far and wide because I don't have another book in me. So it's just really about constantly sharing. So yeah, I write a book every year, a podcast, a video, a blog, a schmog, a log. There's so much going on. So I call it feeding the beast. Yeah. It's like this constant feeding the beast of social media.
Yeah, and no, your content is very relevant. It's very future focused. I don't think there's a lot of content that is at the level that you produce, and I really genuinely mean that. I mean, being in this world of kind of, what does the future look like, and kind of future of work and education, all of that, I can tell you it's definitely crisp and relevant, and stops me in my tracks and say, okay, I don't know anything, let me start over again, because this is a great point. And so really I look forward to many more books that you're going to write. And I just want to wrap up on this aspect that, so every year you choose a theme word for the year, and you kind of practice this theme word. So I would like for you to share what's your theme word for this year. And then kind of maybe if there's an action point that you want our audience to do, maybe choose their own theme year or whatever else you want them to kind of walk away with from this conversation.
Let me ask you that quickly. What's your theme word?
I don't have one yet. It's embarrassing. I didn't come up with it. I need to. I've been thinking about it for the last 2 months. I know I'm behind.
Wow,
I need to.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't come up with one.
Maybe your word should be catch up.
Last year it was expansive, so expanding on all aspects, and that definitely happened. This year I'm just. There's no excuse. I just didn't make time.
Maybe also like a student. Off air you were talking about how much you're learning, and it's almost like theme it into like, I'm a student again, I'm learning again, and that's a wonderful place to be. There was a great meme on Instagram the other day. It said, have the courage to suck at something new as often as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Okay, so look, I mean, I started the Word of the Year theme because I realized that when you give context and you give a tone to something, you change your focus points, you change your patience, you change your investment, you change everything. And so a few years ago, my word was expansive as well. And I remember that everything was about moving to Dubai. It was about, I'm going to just get rid of assets, make that move, and really start to grow my business. It was all about expansiveness. And then last year, my word was fluid. And it was about being fluid in the way I make decisions. And within 24 hours, as I saw the COVID-19 lockdowns coming, I moved out of Dubai. I then moved into an apartment in Clifton in Cape Town in South Africa on the water. In fact, my friend messaged me. He's like, do you realize that your word was fluid and you're living on the ocean? I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize that. So it was all about fluidity. This year, I decided that my word should be reinvention. And I've really started to take a look at reinventing my physical body by the Ironman, reinventing my business, becoming much more online, developing masterclasses and online schools. And then in relationship, trying to figure out, I've also started a podcast on relationships, which hasn't come out yet, called Relationships Reimagined, trying to figure out what it's like to have a modern relationship and what is a modern relationship, And so trying to rethink and reinvent the idea of relationships within myself intimately and my friendships and those sort of things. And the key here is that when you're in a state of following the theme or the word of the year that you've chosen, like, for example, reinvention, is that it's obvious I need to do the Ironman because I'm reinventing my body. It's obvious I need to build an online school and hire the people to do that for me, which is why I'm chosen the word reinvention. So I have to rethink that. So the word itself has motivated me, focused where I put my money, focused the amount of investment I make, focused the level of patience I have. And so next year, I'll have a sense of what word I want to theme next year. But for this year, my level of living in Cape Town for the year was also a big part of reinvention. It's like, okay, I'm here for the year. I'm not going to even bother about traveling. Let's just keep focused on being here. And so reinvention has really impacted every touch point of my life because I've wanted to apply it to every touch point of my life. And, some people say my words flourish. I'm like, yes, it's a wonderful word, but like, what are you doing with it? How are you changing your rituals, habits, and behaviors based on it? And most people don't think about that. They just want to theme it and then leave it. And then for me, it's about, look, theme it and then have it top of mind all the time so it affects your behavior in every touch point of your life if you can. And so, I'm enjoying reinvention. It's also brought a lot of patience to me. Like, I feel a lot more patient with myself, like training with the crew for the Ironman. Man, those people are good and they fit and I'm way at the back, but that's my journey, right?
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely. I'm going to come up with my word. I like the student. I like the word you suggested. It really is about just growth and learning, I guess, for me. So in many ways.
It's similar to reinvention, to be honest. It's similar. I think, and I also think we have this period of time right now that it's important for us to reinvent. It's a rethink, to learn more, because we're going to come out of this and the world's going to be different.
Absolutely.
And so we have to be ready for this,
Absolutely. And I'll look forward to that new podcast. I'm actually really excited. That sounds very relevant as well. Again, finally somebody's doing this discussion. I'm super excited about it. I look forward to learning more about it.
Let me just say one thing. We have zero answers. That's the point of the podcast. It's like we're trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Listen, John, thank you so much. Thank you for continuously inspiring me and many, many others. I'm really enjoyed this conversation and look forward to so much more that you're going to produce and put out into the world. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Great to see you again.